Ann and I are here with you today, and we're going to be connecting to Instagram in just a minute as soon as it tells me I can. Welcome. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Thanks, Leanne, for joining us. And let me welcome our Instagram ladies as well. Welcome to Instagram and welcome to our Facebook Live. Today we're sequencing. We talked Friday about shame. Remember what that is? Self-hatred at my expense. And yesterday we talked about guilt, how to get rid of the guilt trip, how to say no without letting yourself feel guilty, because you shouldn't ever say no to anybody, right? So now we're going to talk about our yes. Our yes. How many of you count the cost? How many of you count the cost when you say yes to someone? Yes, I can drive you here, or yes, I can give you this, or yes, I can do this for you. How many of you stop for a minute, pause, press pause between request and response? How many of you count the cost of what it's going to cost you if you say yes? How many of you would raise your hand and say you do that? Today, we're talking about the cost of your yes. So how many of you count the cost before you say yes? Like, wow, if I say yes to you, that's going to cost me. I'm not going to be able to do my hair today, or I'm not going to be able to go to the pool today, or I'm not going to be able to do my art today, or I'm not going to be able to spend my money on this if I give it to you, or all of those costs. Do you count the cost before you say yes?
Yeah, Leslie, I love that you brought that up, because when we say yes to something or someone, we're saying no to something or someone else. Our yeses, it's a give and a take in our relationships. And sometimes it's the relationship in our own head. Sometimes it's the external relationships that we navigate. So great to see all of our folks here. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah. And we do want to welcome you from everywhere where you are, from wherever in the world. But what does your yes cost you? Are you aware of that? What does your yes cost you? We've been talking a little bit about people pleasing, not extensively, but some of the reasons that we can't say no and we feel guilty is that we don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to upset people. We feel the rejection if we don't do what they want. And so what does your yes cost you? Your no costs you some things, you know that, right? But let's reverse it. What does your yes cost you?
Leslie, I'm seeing some in the feed. Time. It costs me my time. I'm seeing it cost me financially. And then I'm seeing a huge awareness come up. I forget to even count. Right? So we forget, sometimes we have these little blinders on, right? It costs me the control of my life. It costs me stress. It can cost me money. I lose myself. It costs me my comfort, a loss of pain.
Let's wind back for a minute, because I think this loss of myself, it costs me, that is really an important thing for us as women to think about, because I think one of our highest values as women is connection and belonging. You know, people need that. All people need that. But I think as women, we're hardwired more for that than men. Men want success and conquering, and that's a high value for them. For us, it's connection and belonging. If you listen to conversations between men and women, it's very interesting. They've done studies on this, and like when men introduce themselves, they usually introduce themselves by where they work, like what you do. Oh, I'm a doctor. Oh, I'm a mechanic. Or what do you play, or what sports do you do, kind of thing. So I'm into baseball. They describe themselves in those ways when they introduce, usually a hierarchical description. I'm a CEO of this. I'm the president of that. I'm a lawyer. I'm a doc. So they try to create rank as they introduce themselves about who's higher than the other. Women don't do that. I've never been in an introduction setting where someone says, and I'm, the president of a company or anything like that. They say, I'm Leanne's friend, or I'm Amanda's mom, or I'm Howard's wife. That's what we introduce ourselves by our connections with one another. And so belonging and being connected is such a high value that sometimes the cost is losing ourselves. It shouldn't be. But sometimes we so long to belong that we're willing to silence and actually smother our own essence, because to be different, to speak up for yourself is not allowed in the belonging that you're in.
Mm.
And it costs you everything.
It does. Let's say I love that you brought that up. And so, when yeses and nos come at a cost, there's also advantages and disadvantages. You just highlighted that to our yeses and to our nos, to the values that we have. And, when we learn to say yes or we learn to say no, we're honoring something. Something is at the center of our yeses and our nos all the time. And I know for me, I love that you brought up belonging. We've talked through the years, this is a thing for me. All right. And so may I just share a really cool God moment about when I said yes to something and the sense of belonging was answered and what it did for me? May I just take a pause and maybe share a little bit vulnerably with our audience for just a half a second? Well, it might take 2 seconds. It might take a minute. All right. So ladies, I was struggling. I was struggling with some of my yeses and my nos. I was struggling with this whole idea of belonging and counting the cost of living my values to the full degree. It costs something to live a Christ-centered life. And so I had an opportunity. I was in another state. I had an opportunity with some girlfriends to walk into this sweet little restaurant. And I was sharing with all of my friends for a couple of weeks that I was having a challenge with belonging. I was having a challenge with what I was saying yes to, what I was saying no to. And I'm going to really make the Reader's Digest version. We'll have coffee someday and talk about the rest. Something very spirit-led and in the moment happened when we first walked into the restaurant. The owner of the bed and breakfast in the restaurant, the first words to us when I said, "Thank you for seating us," we were not staying at the bed and breakfast. He opened up his arms like this and he said, "I'm so glad you came." We made a decision in the moment to go someplace that we didn't know we had an open door to. I felt the tap on my shoulder by the Holy Spirit to enter the door and to get courageous and ask the question. And I was welcomed with, "I'm so glad you came." My yes and some of my no's invited somebody else to say a yes. Did it cost him something? Absolutely. He was ready to shut down the breakfast for the day, but he chose to say yes. And the benefit on my life, the life of the women that were with me, and the ripple effect of that has gone on. And this is fresh and new in my life right now. When we count the cost of being even vulnerable and sharing with others what we're struggling with. So thanks, Leslie, for the pause. And I hope that resonates in some way with you. Maybe you have struggled with that sense of belonging as well. So thanks, Leslie.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think we all struggle with that sometimes because nobody likes rejection. Rejection is hurtful, and studies show that rejection is just as hurtful as physical pain. The emotional pain of rejection is physically tracked in our body when researchers study that. So it's no fun to be rejected. But I think it's really important. One of my goals in doing all these Facebook Lives, Instagram, is helping you get healthy and strong. I think women have deferred their own well-being to sometimes enable the dysfunction in other people to flourish. And so I want you to get healthy enough to press pause and ask yourself, what does it cost me to say no? And what does it cost me to say yes? Because I believe there is a high price sometimes in being too nice. There's stories after stories told about that, but I'll just tell you one story about the high cost of a woman that I counseled that was too nice. That she didn't want to hurt this guy's feelings when he asked her out for a date. She was a college student. He was kind of a nerdy guy, and she really didn't want to go out with him at all. She just wanted to be a friend, but he asked her out and she thought, "Oh, I'll go out with him one time. It's not going to hurt anything and I'll go out with him." Well, he turned out to be a very mean person and sexually assaulted her on their date. Now, it cost her to be too nice. She didn't want to go. She knew she didn't want to go. And yet she overrode her own sense of no. She didn't know what was going to happen for sure. But sometimes we are nice to our own detriment. I can't think of his name, Gavin, somebody wrote the book, The Gift of Fear.
Mm.
Sometimes fear tells us someone's not safe. Do not be friends with them. Do not let them stay with you. Do not go out with them. Do not hang out with them. The Bible tells us do not hang out with unsafe, wicked people. And yet, and we don't necessarily know that up here, but we know that here. And yet we're so afraid to hurt someone's feelings. We say yes when we should say no. And it burns us. It costs us. And it's okay to learn from those mistakes. We've all made them. So let's not move into a shame attack, self-hatred at my expense. I can't believe I was so stupid. We're all stupid. We all make mistakes. But you're here right now for a reason. And that is to learn to press pause and ask yourself, what is it going to cost me to say yes? And what's the most it might cost me? And do I want to pay that price? So when someone asks me to borrow money, for example, I ask myself, what's it going to cost me if they never pay me back? Can I afford to give this as a gift? And if I cannot afford to give this as a gift with graciousness, then I'm not lending them money because it might cost me too much if they don't pay me back, right? And so these are the ways that we can learn to have good boundaries. What does it cost me to lie, to cover up your sin? It costs me my integrity. Do I want to pay that? Do I want to lose my integrity to make you happy because I lied for you or I covered something over and didn't tell the truth? No, I don't want to lose my integrity, lie for you. So it's a hard no. I'm not going to say yes here. But you can't learn to do that unless you're willing to press pause and think. What's it going to cost me to say no? Maybe they're going to be mad at me. They're going to reject me. I don't need to feel guilty. I'm not wrong for saying no. I'm allowed, but I might have to pay a cost. And what's it going to cost me to say yes?
Les, I love that you brought that up. I wrote down, I'm making some notes here. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. So I wrote down that our yeses and our nos have a price tag. And what would be different if we actually acknowledge that? If we actually acknowledged, so say you have, $100 in your bank account. You have $100 in your bank account and you walk into, all right, so I'm a thrifter. All right. So I walk into a thrifter. I say yes to the thrift store and I walk in with my $100. And that's all I have. What I choose to say yes to on the rack, what I choose to say no to will show me what's left in my account at the end of my shopping trip. And so there are going to be areas, if I thrift, my $100 is going to go a little farther than if I walk into Saks Fifth Avenue or wherever, right? They're going to look different. And so sometimes our yeses and our nos in different circumstances are going to have a higher price tag. The one constant cost for all of our yeses and our nos is the integrity you brought up, Leslie. It's who we are at the center. And I will say my integrity, although I fail, I'm a flawed. We're going to talk more about flawed Fiona. But here's the deal. One thing that I will not compromise is who I am. Will I always do it perfectly? No. I am a flawed human being with limitations. But when I can pause, like you said, give myself a breath and really self-reflect the big picture, not just in the moment where my emotions and my thoughts are, but the big picture of the life that God has called me to live. If I pause and I think about it and I understand the cost, it's going to help me to make more conscious decisions on my yeses and my nos. Thanks.
Thank you, Lan. And I think this is all we're asking you to learn to do, not to say no to everyone, because now I've learned it's not wrong to be selfish. You don't need to be guilty for taking care of yourself and saying, no, I can't lend you money. Proverbs 6 is really clear. Don't co-sign on a loan. Don't lend money to people who are irresponsible with their money. You're not helping them and you're hurting yourself. So the Bible's really clear about let your yes be yes and let your no be no. And you are allowed as a grown-up woman even a married woman, to have your no and your yes. If you don't have those, then you're not as healthy as God wants you to be. God wants you to have a healthy yes, I'm all in, and no regrets. And sometimes it costs me because I didn't even know about the cost. And I'm okay with that because I'm all in. And sometimes, no, I'm not willing to pay any price to do that, but especially not the price that I'm imagining. And you might be totally wrong. He might have been a totally safe person if you said no to a nerdy guy in college and gone out. But what did it cost you is it cost you your time and your energy, and it cost him because you created false hope that there might be more to a relationship than there really was. Right. And
Indeed.
so this is a gift when you can be honest with someone about who you are and who you're not. And that's living in your values and your integrity. And you don't need to apologize for that. Just like if a man wants chocolate ice cream and you're not chocolate ice cream, it's better for you to say, that's not who I am, than for you to try to be what he wants.
Mm.
That leads to feelings of insecurity and inferiority because you're not that. You're not that. So if he wants a real mountain outdoorsy camping girl and you're not a girl who likes to do that, you might try it to see, but to pretend that you like something that you like or you want something that you want, or to marry a man who's pretending to be a Christian because he thinks you want that, is only hurting the whole picture long term. It costs you. And so it's much more healthy to be honest and to know what you want and what your values are and what's important to you, what you want to spend your time, energy, money on,
Mhm.
what you don't.
You know what? It takes work to do that, Leslie. And,
Yeah.
sometimes, can I just say, sometimes we're afraid to say, that where fear comes in, we're afraid to say yeses or no to things. So we remain in indecision. We remain confused. I remember, I remember Coach working with me once about the areas in my life where I was this wishy-washy. I'm so wishy-washy. And they challenged me on that. It's like, Leanne, where does your yes end? Where does your no begin? I'm hearing an awful lot of maybes. And are you willing to go into the camp of yes or the camp of no? And so, there's that huge spiritual influencer that gets us to tap, that's why values are such a big deal for me. I get that tap on the shoulder and I say, you know what? What is my passion? What is my truth? What is my value system? And that's, that spiritual side of me is going to help motivate me on my yeses and my nos in very real and tangible ways. And so, let's let go of some wishy-washy here for a minute. Where does wishy-washy show up for you? Where are you a maybe girl because you're afraid of what's on the other side of your yes or your no? It's risky. I get it. It's risky to say yes or no to anything. I chose to jump out of a perfectly good airplane 5 years ago. I did. It was risky. I didn't know what was going to be on the other side.
But you did know something. And that was you didn't want to live afraid and you didn't want to live small. So you were willing to risk adventure. And I think this is what I really want you to practice, is that you're not going to be perfect on this. So sometimes I'll say yes, and then I'll realize, wow, I said yes to this. And I remember saying yes to a speaking event one time, and I wanted to go, and I was happy to say yes. But during my yes at the speaking event, they added like 5 more speaking events to my day than I had been contracted for or planned for. And so it's hard to say no when you're the speaker at the speaking event. So it was put me in an awkward position. But afterwards, I did talk to them about that and said, hey, we were only agreeing to 3 times, not 8 times of speaking. So I think that these are places where we learn. Now I know ahead of time to be more clear. Now I know. So please don't worry about this. You're going to practice it. And what you do is when you say yes, like for me, if I'm saying yes to hours long on Facebook Live, nobody's paying me for this. I'm giving you my time and I am delighted to do it. I hope someday I get to meet you in person. I'm saying yes every day to do Facebook Lives. I can't do it every day of the year, but I can do it for 2 weeks, right? That's what we tend to do. 2 weeks of saying yes for a while, right? And I can do that. And I can do it for an hour, and I'm not going to do it all day. But where you get to know where you're at, yes, is icky, is where you start to feel resentful.
That's right.
Like, "Ugh, I don't want to do this. I don't know why I said yes. I'm so mad that I said yes. I'm so angry that this is taking so much time. I'm so upset that I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling Notice that. Wow. I said yes, and I'm learning that I should have said no. Next time, I'm going to press pause and count the cost. So now you're learning. This is healthy. This is how we all learn. We don't learn by osmosis. We learn through failure. You learn to walk by falling down and realizing, oh, that was too big a step. I lost my balance there. I've got to manage my little baby steps before I can take a big step. Or I need to walk around the table holding on to the edges before I let go because I'm going to fall down. And you're not consciously thinking all of that. You're intuitively just knowing that's the process of learning.
Yeah.
And so don't let the guilt trip or the shame attack make you paralyzed in this indecision that Leanne talked about. Make a decision, but then go back and reflect. Am I happy that I made that decision? Did I feel good about what I gave? Or what do I feel good about what I said no to? Whew, I'm so glad. It was so hard to say no. I didn't want to babysit my daughter's children all summer. It was so painful to say that. But once I said it and she accepted it, I was like, whew, I feel so much better. That's a green light to tell you that was a good decision, right? That was a good decision. And so you learn those things. Or if you say yes and you're thinking, oh, I'm so mad at myself. I shouldn't have said yes. I do not want to do this. And you know, your body, your spirit, your mind will tell you, your emotions will tell you. And don't beat yourself up that you didn't know ahead of time, because we aren't omniscient. Sometimes we get ourselves into the weeds before we realize we're in the weeds. But once you realize you're in the weeds, notice, I don't want to get into these weeds again. What do I need to do different? Jenny asked a real interesting question that I want to dovetail on this. She says, but what if you've always said yes for 33 years? Wouldn't the other person be right to hate you for pushing back like you lied all these years with your yes? Well, what the other person does with what they're feeling is up to them. That's not your responsibility to manage. But I do think, and we will be actually at our challenge, and our week-long challenge that we're doing in a couple of next week, moving beyond insecurity. And I hope you've signed up for that. The last day on people pleasing, we're going to be talking a little bit about how do you start to warn your friends that you're going to become a little bit new in the way that you handle your yes and your no, right? So that you're not such a people pleaser anymore. But I think, Jenny, what you could say to your friends is, the Lord is convicting me that I have been caught in an unhealthy fear of man. And the Bible tells me that's a snare. And so I am learning to say no because I've always said yes. And I didn't say it. I said it because that's what I thought I was supposed to say as a good Christian girl. And I'm learning that I really need to learn to think for myself and decide whether I want to say yes. So no, I wasn't lying all those years. I might not have wanted to say yes, and I did say yes, but it was because I thought I was supposed to say yes. And now I'm realizing I don't have to say yes every time. So you might be in for a shock when I do say some no's to you now. And that person now will have to decide how they're going to deal with the new you. And it's true. They may not like the new you.
And it's okay to inform them. It's kind, actually. Wishy-washy, confusion is not kind. I say being clear is kind. And so if you are taking a step, if you are going to join our challenge next week, let your people know. Let your people know around you, hey, you know what? I'm going to step into this Moving Beyond Insecurity challenge. And then when you do, and we walk through every day with you, you're going to have an opportunity to practice some very tangible steps and to get coaching around it, right? It's going to be super, super fun. And, I always tell my clients this, Leslie. I'm like, if you're a little bit hesitant of letting people know what it is you're navigating next, just say, my coach is calling me up. She's calling me up to explore some new things in my life. And so I just want to give you a heads up that I'm being called up, and I feel like the Holy Spirit is going to show me some things. And so we have an opportunity to let people around us know that we're doing something new
Yeah.
because it can be shocking. Your yes or your no could totally knock somebody off of their chair. And so being clear and kind because, you're on a public page here entitled Enriching Relationships That Matter Most. So I can imagine in your relationships, your yeses, your nos, your maybes, they do have a price tag because these relationships matter to you. And so how will you let others know, the ones that matter the most to you, that you're about ready to maybe do something a little bit different?
Let me give you a little script for those of you who are feeling anxious about this. Like, oh, what am I going to do? So, if I hope you join the challenge next week because you'll get
Yeah.
lots of help this way. But let me give you a little script for those of you who are convicted as moms that you are overfunctioning, because we got some of that in our chat yesterday and the day before too. That you
Good.
are overfunctioning, that you are saying yes to your kids, that you are momming them instead of letting them do their own thing, think for themselves, figure it out, working yourself out of the job of mom to them. And this works really well, especially with teenagers or older children. So those children who have been used to you for years and years and years, always doing what they want, what they need, solving their problems, fixing their boo-boos, and giving them advice and rescuing them out of their mess. And now you might be learning that that wasn't so healthy for you nor for them. And so you want
Mm.
to change, but you're not sure. They're going to hate me now. I just know it. If I start saying no, it's going to cost me. It's going to cost my relationship. And we don't want that to happen. So let me give you a prescript that you can use. This is recorded, so you can go back in the Facebook page and watch it again if you don't want to write it down right now. Or just grab your phone and turn on your recorder so that you can hear it. If you start the conversation, whether it's with your husband and you're going to start changing the dance here, or you start the conversation with a teenager or an adult child, the best way to get them to hear you is to start with this phrase. I have a problem that I want to talk to you about. As long as it's your problem, they're going to be willing to listen. If it's you have a problem I want to talk about, they're not going to be so open. All right. So if you say, hey, mom, I have a problem I want to talk to you about, or hey, son, or hey, daughter, or hey, husband, I have a problem that I want to talk to you about. They're going to usually be all ears. It's going to take about 10 minutes. Do you have time right now? Make sure that they have time to give you. Usually they're starting to feel like, oh my gosh, do you have cancer? They're going to start magnifying it or catastrophizing it in their mind. So they're going to be all ears for a moment. All right. And then you can start the conversation with something like this. I'm learning something about myself that I never understood before. I realize that I'm a little unhealthy. When you can own that and confess that to your children or I'm a little unhealthy. I keep looking for everybody's approval. And so I've never learned to have my no. And I'm learning that that isn't a good thing, that God wants me to have my no. And God wants me to be a godly woman. And sometimes that might mean saying no because I have to say no to something in order to say yes to something else. I'm a human being and I can't say yes to two things at the same time. And I just always thought I was supposed to say yes to everyone and everything because if I said no, I was being selfish. And so I'm learning that I got it all backwards. You're not blaming them, you're owning yourself,
Such a difference.
right? Such a
Such a
difference.
difference.
And so from now on, you might hear me start saying no to you a little more. I'm just practicing. I'm not sure it's always the right decision. So you're giving them a little wiggle room to argue or kick back or however they're going to do it. I'm practicing, but I think I need to learn how to say no and not feel guilty and not feel like I always have to say yes to everybody, including you guys. And I'm going to start this with
Mm.
at work and I'm going to do it with the neighbors but I wanted to let you know that I'm becoming aware that I have a problem. So you're going to start seeing me say no a little bit more. Nothing personal. I'm practicing, but I hope you'll bear with me as I learn how to do this. As you
Mm.
are humble and owning your problem, most other relatively healthy people will be grateful for your honesty, vulnerability, and work with you on that. If you're married to a manipulator or your kids are users and takers, they're not going to like it. But now you've given them warning that you're changing, and we'll
That
see what happens next.
absolutely. Let's say I love that you gave us that little script idea, right?
Mhm.
And so I'll just tag on to that. So if you say things like, um, hey there, I'm struggling, or I have a problem that I want to talk to you about, or I have a confession to make of something, all of a sudden their radar ears are like, oh, I'm going to get, especially if you're dealing with a really difficult person or let's just be real. They're like, ooh, she's got a confession. I want to dig up some dirt. And so they are going to tune in a little bit more. Sometimes we only have a moment to be heard. And so going from the funny side to the serious side. And so setting up the conversation for success rather than going in with guns ablazing and all the things, right? Being vulnerable when you are that way, you invite somebody else to do the same.
Right.
And so it's a gift. It's a gift of give and take that cannot be minimized.
And what power do you start to regain when instead of saying, "You're manipulating me, stop," you say, "Wow, I'm letting myself be manipulated, and I don't need to let that happen anymore." Right? Now you've got the weight on your side because you can't stop them if they want to do that.
You can't.
Right? So you're not receiving my no. I don't need you to receive my no for me to give it. Right?
And
And
I
so,
don't need to receive, you don't need, I don't need your permission to have a no.
yeah, right. But this is part of you getting healthy. And this is what this challenge is all about. So if you want to take this with us, let me give you a few details. It's the moving beyond insecurity challenge. I'm insecure in my no. I'm insecure in my yes. I'm insecure in my values. I'm insecure in my feelings. I don't even know what I feel. I'm insecure as a person, right? This is typical
That's
for
right.
even adult Christian women. They feel insecure. And so we want to tackle that. Now, obviously, we're not going to cover everything you need to know to be completely over it, but you will get the tools that you need to have to keep working on it. If you want to move from feeling insecure and not enough to feeling strong, healthy, and stable, not perfect,
Not
not that
perfect.
you know everything, because you're still a human being. And so that's limiting, right? You're still
Mhm.
limited, but much different than you feel right now. So we're going to charge you $17. Now, that isn't going to cover our costs by any stretch of the imagination. But what it does is it says, I'm in. I'm willing to put some skin in the game. And that's beneficial to you so that you're more likely to show up. How many things do we sign up for and we never show up because we didn't buy the ticket? If we bought the ticket, we show up. And so you're buying a ticket to show up at the table. This is what we're doing. Next week, June 10th through the 14th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Once the challenge starts, you can't sign up. So it's ending. Your opportunity to sign up is this week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week, we're going to deal with 5 areas of insecurity. Day 1 on Monday, you're going to get an email in the morning about self-doubt and comparison trap. Those things will make you feel insecure when you're always comparing yourself to someone else. An ant who compares itself to an elephant will always feel insecure, right? But it's not an elephant, it's an ant, right? And so stop comparing yourself to something you're not. And so we're going to talk about how that makes you feel when you do that and how to stop doing that on Monday. You're going to get a video from one of our coaches about that with some tips about that. And then at this time on Zoom, not on Facebook, we're going to head over to Zoom. And me and one of my coaches is going to work each day with this topic, giving you role plays, giving you sample scripts, helping answer your questions, coaching you on where you got stuck in the practice applications for an hour every single day. Monday, it's self-doubt and insecurity, and it's going to be at this time, noon Eastern time on Zoom. You'll get the link when you sign up. On Tuesday, we're going to be talking about perfectionism. Leanne's going to be covering that as my coach that day. And perfectionism, how does that keep you feeling insecure? Because you never can get there or stay there very long, right? And so you're always feeling like a failure. Wednesday, we're going to be talking about shame and guilt and how do I really understand that in a deeper way so that I don't keep beating myself up and beating myself and letting other people beat me up for just being human, for
Right.
just being human. Susan, our coach, will be doing that day. And again, you'll get an email the day of that time of our Zoom call that day will be 3 p.m. Eastern. Just
Mhm.
that's the only day that's going to be different. Thursday, we're going to be doing negative thinking. Ugh, I can't. I'm just stupid. I'll never get this right. How many of us can relate to that kind of negative self-talk, which affects you physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, in every way? And it makes you feel inadequate and insecure and shamed because you're shaming your own self. Self-hatred at my expense. So Elise is going to be talking about that, Coach Elise, with me on Thursday, same time, noon Eastern time for our Zoom Live. And then Friday, Liam will be back with moving beyond people pleasing. How do we actually move beyond this unhealthy people pleasing? So please sign up for our challenge. For those of you who are listening and you're not watching the screen, you go to leslievernick.com/summer growth, all one word, summer growth. And you'll get all the information there about the times of the coaching sessions. The coaching sessions will be recorded. So if you're working full time and you can't attend these daytime coaching sessions, you can watch them in our private Facebook page. It won't be this one. It will be a private Facebook page that you have to join just for the challenge. And the videos will close down in 30 days. So we don't want to leave them up there forever, but they will be closed in 30 days so that you can watch them and then they'll be gone. So we hope you join us for this challenge. I think it'll be amazing. We've never done a live week of coaching before. So this is something new for our team. So we're busy planning and working it. And we would love to have you participate and be a part and just do something for yourself. 1 hour a day, maybe an hour and a half, the hour to be on the Facebook and the Zoom Live, and then a half an hour to read the email that you get with the instructions of the topic for that day, as well as this short video that the coach will give you some tips and some strategies to try so that when you come to your coaching group, you can have tried some of them to see if they've worked or if they've helped you. And if you got stuck, how you can get coached beyond that. All right. So that's all I'm going to say about that. We want you to be there. We have a number of women who have signed up already. It's going to be a great group. And we hope you decide to say, I'm in. I'm in. How many of you are already in? If you are, put it in the Facebook page just so that you can encourage others. I'm in. I'm in. I signed up. I'm in. That would be great. We would love to do that. As you do that, I'm going to move over to questions and we're going to answer some questions for a little bit.
All right. Leslie, thank you for that. I'm just thinking out loud while you look for questions. I'm thinking out loud about, next week, the opportunity that's there. And what if we got just a little bit deeper, even with our yeses and our nos? And, that self-doubt, we shake some of that off and we're going to say a no to self-doubt and a yes to self-stewardship. And sometimes we're afraid to say yes to something because we don't know what's on the other side. What's God going to call me into if I say yes? And maybe that's something that you're wondering. It's like, oh, if I say yes to this coaching experience, what might God be calling you into? And I say, we don't know. But one thing that we know that there is freedom on the other side of fear.
Okay, here's a couple questions. Jenny's
All right.
asking, would your week be geared for people struggling with pushing back like people pleasers? I mean, is it geared just for that or is it focused mainly on marital things? Actually, we're not going to talk about marital things at all next week for a couple of reasons. One is we want to make sure that you feel very safe in that group. And so we're just talking about ourselves. We're talking about our own insecurity. There may be some context to that, like somebody's in our life who puts us down all the time for sure. But we're talking about what we need to do about ourselves. It's sort of like saying to the manipulator, well, you need to stop manipulating. Well, the manipulator's not here. How do I need to stop letting myself be manipulated? All right. How do they won't accept my no? Well, they might not. How do you live with that when you keep saying no and they're badgering you? That's the work we're doing. So we're not working on a marriage. We're not working on relationships. We're working on you getting beyond your own insecurity so that you can stand strong and think for yourself and have your yes and have your no and manage people's disapproval or disappointment because it'll happen. How do you learn to do that? That's what we're covering that week. The coaching challenge this next week, live challenge, is available to anyone across the world. That was another question. Is it available internationally? Yes. And if you're not on Facebook, you will have to get on Facebook for the 30 days that the videos will be live in our private Facebook page. Anyone has access to Facebook. If you're on Facebook right now, you have access to Facebook because you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. You can join Facebook under a fictitious name or get on account for 30 days. Doesn't cost you anything. You can join our Moving Beyond Challenge week. You can quit after you watch the videos, but the videos will only be housed in the private Facebook page. And those are for reasons that we just want to be able to have it only in one place where we know what it is and we're going to take it down in 30 days. And that's just for our protection for you so that you know what the rules are of what you share, how you share it, and how long, and only people who have signed up for the challenge can watch it. However, there lots of people sign up for the challenge, so we can't monitor everybody and whether they might know you in a different setting or all those kind of things. But we'll let you know the limits of our ability to be confident, but talk about you and talk about what you're willing to work on while you're in a public space, just like you do here. All of you are careful on what you say. And so you will need to think about that a little bit too on our challenge. All right. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, I see a lot of I'm all in. I'm in, I signed up. So welcome to you. Welcome to you. And Leslie, you just did such a beautiful job, right? Of talking about what we're going to be doing every day and talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we know we're going to talk about self-doubt, perfectionism, guilt and shame, all those things. And so you want to carve out some time for yourself next week to take a dive. Imagine what might be different in your life because you gave yourself that gift to do it.
Mm-hmm. So here's another question I see in the chat. The statement that's often been shot back at me when I'm being asked to do something is, can't you do it? Or can you do it or not? Very manipulative. And it's not whether you're capable of doing it. That's not the question. The question is, are you willing to do it?
Right.
And you get to decide. Right? I'm capable of doing lots of things. For example, if my church called me and asked me if I would be willing to be the director of their traffic volunteers at their church, because we have so many people coming to church and somebody has to direct the traffic, I would say a hard no. Right? It's not that I couldn't do it, but I'm not willing to do it. That's not my gift. That's not my interest. No, hard no. I'm not spending my time, my energy, and my mental processes on helping people direct traffic for churches. People are far more interested in that and qualified for that than me, right? So, and I wouldn't feel any guilt. So it's not whether, and so if someone, well, you're capable of giving me money. You have money in the bank. Why can't you give me money, right? And it's my money. I get to decide what I'm going to do with it. It's my time. I get to decide what I do with it. It's my abilities. I get to decide what I do with them. And that's called stewardship. Stewardship. And part of being a good steward is being able to say no. Mm-hmm. No. So when they ask you, can you not do it? That's not the question. And I think, let me give you another real tip, and we'll talk about this next Friday. And for those of you who are interested, I will give you a little bit of a hint. We're opening up a coaching group that will be much more secure after Friday. For those of you who want to continue your work in this, we will have open coaching for 6 weeks after our group. And we'll tell you more about that next week. But those of you who might be really ready to do some deeper work in a more private setting, and we're going to provide that for you as well. But let me give you something. Never give your reason why you say no. Because as soon as you give your reason, people will argue with your reason. It's not valid in their mind. So if you say, no, I can't, I'm busy today. Oh, can you do it tomorrow? And maybe, and what are you doing? What's so important that you're so busy? Maybe it was, I'm busy reading my novel that I want to finish. Right? But you can't say that, or I'm busy painting my pictures. Well, that's not a good reason to say no. My need is much more important than yours. Right? So as soon as you give your reason for saying no, they're going to argue with you. Mm-hmm. Right? And then you're going to have to go into jading. You're going to have to go into justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining, JADE. And as soon as you do that, you're sunk. Because if you're not strong enough to say, done, no more conversation about this, they're going to spin you in circles till you don't have a good reason anymore. And so you say, okay, uncle, I cry, uncle, you won. Because their reason is always going to be much more compelling than yours. And so just say, no, I'm sorry, that won't work for me. Or not even, I'm sorry. No, I can't. Nope. No, thank you. I can't.
You don't need to apologize for your no's.
I don't need to apologize.
Leslie, I love that you brought that up. One of my clients said the other day, she said, Leanne, I've realized that jading is my middle name and I'm ready to kick that middle name out. And so, when that question about, can you do this or can you not? You touched on this, but I just want to highlight it again. It's, are you willing? Will you do this or will you not? Are you willing to babysit your grandkids over the summer, whatever it is, but are you willing? And we have choices. So yes, my ability, I can do something, but like you said, Leslie, if it's not in alignment with my values, with what God has called me to do, then no, I could do it. I can, but I'm not willing. And I know for some of you might think, well, that's just semantics. It's wordsmithing. It's way more than that. There's so much energy behind your can and your will. A can be a push. A will is a choice. And so you're a choice for your yeses and your nos. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Okay, so let me say, there's another question. Will there be a replay of the Zooms? There will be a library of the week-long Zooms, all 5 from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, in the Facebook private page. Just like you look at the replays of these Zooms in Facebook here, in our private page, there'll be a replay of the Zooms there. We'll put them in there for you to watch, but they will only be available for 30 days after the challenge. So from June 10th to July 10th or June 14th, I guess, till July 14th. That's how long they'll be in there. Okay.
I love what Jenny said. And this is from our friends Lisa Turkhurst and Jim Kress, her therapist. Adults inform, children explain.
Yes.
And so, adulting is hard work. Leslie, I don't know. Some peopling is hard work. Adulting is hard work. Navigating relationships inside of our own minds, our relationship with God, and the relationships out here calls us up to be our best selves. And so when we can let go of shame, self-doubt, perfectionism, all the things that we're going to be talking about, when we can shake some of that off, we're going to engage in healthier ways with the people around us. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for a summer like that. I'm ready for a summer like that.
How many of you really desire to be a woman of strength and dignity, a woman of integrity, a woman who desires to be healthy and strong? I mean, that is God's will for you. It is God's will for you to mature, he calls it, right? To mature and live a holy life. But it's not just accommodating and people pleasing. That's not maturity. That's fear-based love. And we talk a lot about that in our groups. And that's perfect love casts out fear. You can love even the unlovable without being manipulated by those people, right? Because you have good boundaries and you have your no, and you know what you will do and you won't do. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that? Who wants to stay a slave of someone's approval of you or someone's dictatorship over you? If you have a choice, and you do have a choice. And so I'm just challenging you. If you've been the good girl your whole life and you've done what everyone wants you to do, I think you might be feeling a bit constipated about now. Constipated with some anger, constipated with some juicy ideas of your own, constipated with some desires to fly and flourish and be blooming your own flower instead of what everybody else wants you to be.
Yeah.
And maybe you're here right now because God has given you the opportunity to just be here in this moment. Like, I didn't know those things on me on Instagram. Here I am. I didn't know I was going to watch this today. And here, take that. Take that. I have this. I was walking the other day in Sun City West when I was home from my haircut. And there was this big black feather on the ground. And I looked at it and I thought, I should pick that up. And I thought, nah, I'm not going to pick up a dirty feather. So I kept walking and I didn't pick it up. On the way back, I had the same thought. I should pick up that feather, but I didn't because I didn't want to pick up a dirty feather and carry it all the way home. So I carried it all. I didn't carry it all the way home and I let it go. I never thought about it. Yesterday, when I'm walking here, I see another feather. I have never seen these big feathers other than the last 2 days. I saw it and I thought, okay, God, you want me to pick up this dirty feather? I picked it up. I put it in my little carry bag that I carry on my waist. I'm walking on my hike and I look down and there's this feather again. It fell out of my bag and God brought the attention. So I'm just saying, I don't know what this feather's for. I'm just having it stuck in a little plant here. But there was something that I was to notice. If you're here and you really don't know why you're here, take it as the Holy Spirit. There's something that you're to know. There's something that you're here for a reason. And so maybe it's to be in this challenge. Maybe God's saying, it's time, girl. It's time for you to know you. Because you can't really belong to anyone else if you don't belong to yourself and you don't belong to God, and that you don't know who God made you to be. You see,
Mm.
look at how beautiful this feather is. It's so distinct. The other one's just one big old black feather, but this is, God gave me a second gift. It's so distinct with all these beautiful markings. You were created with fingertips that are your own, with irises that are your own, and gifts and talents, virtues and values that are your own. They're not your husband. They're not your pastors. They're not your mother's. They're yours.
That's right.
And your own self. And you need to do the work to do that. So I hope you're all in so that you don't feel insecure and inadequate and devalued the rest of your adult life.
Well, and people will never really know you. So, I love that you brought this up. We become chameleons if we don't really know who we are and we don't have our yeses and our nos, and we're not firm in those. We can become what everybody else wants us to be instead of who God created us to be. And I often tell everyone that I work with, and remind myself, God imprinted into your DNA who you are. Part of your mission on this earth is to uncover, discover, nourish, and cultivate the beautiful person that God created you to be, and not hide her. Don't hide her, because I spent some years of my life chameleon and trying to turn into what everybody wanted me to. You had a nature experience in Arizona. Me too. I was out on my back patio and I looked up, there's a lizard on my white ceiling, and it was white. It blended in.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it was really creepy. I've seen other lizards, same size, same shape, same everything, out in my yard, and they're the color of my grass, okay, or the color of the tree. They change color. I never really know
To
who
be
it is.
safe. They do
What's
that
that?
to be safe.
They do it to be safe, and that's part of why we don't own our yeses and our nos and our values and all the things, because we're afraid of what's on the other side of that freedom. And sometimes we need to be safe. I just want to say, sometimes your yeses and your nos need to be hard. No to abuse, right? The different things. All right. Let's not pretend that there's some really wacky, wild things in our world. Abuses, addictions. Ooh. And some of those need a hard no. And then there are other ways that we can unveil and reveal the areas in our life where we're hiding, to play it safe, to play it small, to be afraid, to be all that God's called us to be. And that self-doubt, that insecurity that we're talking about here, we all have it. There's areas in my life where I'm a shaky in the knees. I'm insecure about it. And I'm so grateful that I have others to partner with me and walk with me. So I can shake off the unhealthy insecurity and embrace a little more freedom. Yeah.
So I don't see any more questions in the chat, but let me repeat jading, because someone asked that in the chat. I see that. So it's JADE. I'm no longer going to justify my no. I'm no longer going to argue with the validity of my no or my yes. I'm no longer going to defend my no or my yes. And I'm no longer going to explain. Adults inform. No. Children explain. Well, this is why I have to say no to you right now. Or this is why I said yes to going back to college. You might, in all of those, justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining are fine in another conversation with a healthy person. They want to know your why, right? Oh, I said yes because I wanted to do this. And then you're going, good for you. I'm happy for you. So we do all of that kind of conversation in normal life. But when you're being arm twisted, manipulated, or when you start to feel insecure, and then you're justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining, you're trying to get someone else's buy-in. You're trying to say, don't you agree with me? Don't you agree with me that I'm justified, that I'm, that I've defended myself, that I'm explaining myself? So now you get it, right? And when you're with an unhealthy person, they will keep you running in circles because they don't want to get it. And of course you're not justified, because they're thinking you should always say yes. Right? You should never say no to me. My cell phone should never say no to me. If it said no to me, I would get a different cell phone. So if you are in an object relationship with someone who is using you to get what they need, your no is toast. I get that.
No is toast.
But that's where you have to understand
Mm.
you are not a person in this relationship. You're an object. And that's not who God made you to be in relationship. And if you're selling your soul just to be loved and used, then there's something insecure about you. And I
Mhm.
really encourage you to hang out with us next week and learn to know a new part of you. Sign up for the challenge. So, what I'd like to do in closing is I'd like you to write your takeaway. What did you get from
Mhm.
today's session? What's one thing that you got from today's session that you need to put into practice? And as you do that, I'm just going to remind you of a story of an insecure man in the Bible and what it
Mm.
cost to say no, and what it cost him to say yes to his insecurity and no to God. So we think about the man who was given talents, the parable of the talents. There were
Mm.
3 men. One man got 10 talents, money to invest. One man got 5 talents, money to invest. And one man got 1 talent, some money to invest. They were given the gift of stewardship. I want you to make something of this. Now, it might not be fair that everybody didn't get all 10 talents, but they each got something to work with that they could show this is what I can do with what you gave me. This is what I can do. This is what I can make of what you gave me. This is our life. Some people have more talents and more abilities, for sure. Some people have more privilege, more opportunity, for sure. But you're still responsible before God of what you do with you. And so the man with the 10 talents went out and made something amazing, and the landowner was happy with him. And the one with 5 talents did the same. But the one who lived insecure, who lived afraid, said, I didn't do anything with my talent. I was just too scared, so I buried it. That's not what God wants you to do with your life. You get one shot at stewarding your life. Are you stewarding everybody else's life, but you are neglecting your own because you don't have a no or you don't have a yes that's yours? If that's true, you're here to hear this today. What are you going to do with what you're hearing? Is the big question. I hope you show up next week at our challenge. If you want the link again, it's leslievernick.com/summer growth. Do not be like the insecure man who lived his entire life wasted because he was afraid.
Mm. Leslie, there's some beautiful wins. May I read a couple of the takeaways from today?
Mhm.
All right. Discover who God made me to be. Don't hide her. Discover who she is. This is a confirmation I was in the right lane as I just got done teaching on our yeses and our nos. Your feather is for me, says our sister on Instagram. I wish I could take a picture. It looks like the one you showed. God is speaking to me to take this course. He sees me. Elroy, the God who sees. I love that. I will not allow my thoughts, feelings, or morals to be constipated by somebody else. I do
Mhm.
not need to explain my no. I just can inform when dealing with unhealthy people. Don't jade. It's okay to say no. There's a cost to our yeses and nos. Look at this. Yeah, I've done that. I've sold my soul to be loved and used. Our souls are not for sale.
Mm.
Neither
Very
is your integrity. Neither is your identity, friends. I love that. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. I'm on a walk. I found a feather on the ground. I hope I can come. I hope you can come. You're encouraging one another in the feed. It's so beautiful. I buried mine thinking I was gaining security. Thank you that I will be what I take away. I want to think on this carefully.
Mm.
Ladies, that's something that we love to work on you with is the thoughts that you have. They matter.
They
You
do matter.
matter.
So our next Facebook Live is going to be tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For those people who work, that's kind of a break for them. But I am going to be talking about what is the difference between confidence and unhealthy pride? What's
Mm.
the difference between confidence and unhealthy pride? Because I think as Christian women, we've been misinformed that confidence is thinking too highly of yourself. And who do you think you are? You shouldn't be proud. And I think there's a healthy pride and an unhealthy pride for sure. And we'll talk about that. But I also think if we look at the woman of strength, dignity, and virtue in Proverbs 31, she had confidence pouring out of her. God wants you to be strong, confident. I am confident in the Lord and in his mighty power, right? Because he's God and he's my God. I'm confident that he's got me and I don't need to live in fear.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So love to see you there. Show up. And thank you so much, Leanne, for your care here and your comments. And I hope you have signed up for our challenge. If you haven't, go to leslievernick.com/summer growth and invite your girlfriend to do it with you. You don't have to be on this live to attend. Invite your girlfriend or girlfriends or your Bible study friends to join you. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could begin a conversation around this together? So hope to see you there, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks, Leanne.
Thanks, Leslie. So great to be here with you.
All right, take care. I'm going to end. Bye-bye.